What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another great edition of The Drop. He's Greg Wyshynski. I'm Arda Okal, and I hope you haven't had lunch today, Wish, because we are carbo loading on this episode, my friend. It's pasta time.
It's pasta time, indeed. All things David Pastrnak in this edition of The Drop. You know, we did our rankings, Arda, our positional rankings for 2023. We had 10 players and 10 executives submit anonymous ballots. And wouldn't you know it, David Pastrnak of the Boston Bruins was number one amongst the wingers.
He was. By the way, speaking of your rankings, there's goaltenders and defensemen also available on ESPN's website, but we're focusing on wingers, most specifically David Pastrnak. Now, as you mentioned, he's number one. So you look at all the other wingers, Kucherov, Marner, whoever else on that list, David Pastrnak is number one and firmly number one. It wasn't like it was a close score according to your scoring system. Did they get it right?
So the first question is he better than Nikita Kucherov, who was number two on the ranking? I think he is. He's definitely better defensively than Kucherov. Is he better than Kirill Kaprizov of the Minnesota Wild, who was number three on the list? I think he is. I think Pastrnak is slightly better at even strength scoring and power play scoring, maybe not quite as adept defensively as Kaprizov based on the metrics, but still overall better. To me, the issue with Pastrnak, in case you couldn't tell, is defense, where he's a little bit below average. Playing with Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron for all those years covered that up a little bit. Now that he's off on his own, a little bit more exposed. So who is the winger, Arda, that is the total package player that could give Pastrnak a run for his money as the top-ranked winger? Is it Mitch Marner? I don't think it is. I think Pastrnak is better offensively than Mitch Marner, even though Marner is better defensively.
Wow.
For me, I think it might be Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk of the Florida Panthers has now proven 2 consecutive seasons that he is one of the elite offensive players in this league, an absolute play driver, physical, better defensively than Pastrnak is. I think as a total package player, Matthew Tkachuk could challenge Pastrnak as the best overall winger in this league.
Okay, the first question I have is today, right now, would you pick Pastrnak over Tkachuk or vice versa?
I wouldn't. I would take Matthew Tkachuk over any other winger in this league right now. Based on look, I had my questions about this dude after the Calgary Flames last year. Like, he scored all these goals, he put up all these points, playing with Johnny Gaudreau, change of scenery. What would happen? Well, look what's happened. Jonathan Huberdeau goes to the Calgary Flames in the Tkachuk trade. And he didn't flop, but he's not Jonathan Huberdeau anymore. Tkachuk goes to the Florida Panthers, doesn't miss a beat, leads them in scoring, is their MVP. I think overall, total package, physicality, defensive play, offensive play, play driving, all of it, I think Matthew Tkachuk's the best winger in this league.
That's incredible. He's also a wizard around and behind the net as well.
Yep.
He leads the NHL in passes from behind the net that convert. So, I mean, he's just a monster in that area. Here's the thing, though. Why don't we talk about change of scenery? I know it's not a team for David Pastrnak, but he does have new line mates. And listen, like you said, right? Like on the perfection line, sure, a Selke trophy, the guy that's basically the trophy is going to be named after eventually, could pick up the defensive slack with any winger that he's playing with in Patrice Bergeron, right? But now you have the Czechia line, and David Pastrnak is still producing well offensively, great offensively, but and I know that this is not a stat that we should be focusing on all the time, but his plus minus is amazing. He never led, listen to me. He's never led forwards in his entire career in plus minus, ever. He's third on the team behind 2 defensemen, which goes to show you that he's on the, like, I know that we shouldn't use it as a stat.
In the year of our Lord 2023, you're making a plus-minus argument. But look, your overall argument, though, I'm going to agree with, which is that one of the more impressive things about David Pastrnak is the fact that you took him away from Marchand, you took him away from Bergeron, and he still has produced and produced even better in some cases than he did with those 2 players. And I think that was always the hesitation about this guy, is if you took him off the perfection line, if you took away that defensive play from Marchand and Bergeron that could compensate for some of his shortcomings, what would his game look like? And his game looks like he's in line to maybe be the MVP this season. So I think you're right. That is an argument in his favor, Arda.
And also it's an argument that people aren't scoring as much when he's on the ice.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
use a different stat, plus minus. I get it. I understand. I hear you. The Corsi Kings. You don't have to come at me. We're all good.
All the computer boys and girls out there. Don't get mad at Arda because he's still using plus minus in this century.
How dare I? Let me get to my Allmark goals against average argument. I'm just kidding. I will not be doing that. But Allmark is part of my next question though. So you look at this team, right? And remember, like coming into this season, it had like very much before we saw this incredible season the Bruins were on, very much had like a last dance kind of vibe, right?
Yeah.
Krejci's back and Bergeron and Marchand are in the tail end of their careers. And where's this team going to go? We definitely didn't see the numbers production from Linus Allmark in terms of save percentage and whatever else, how amazing he's playing and the statistics bolstering his Vezina argument. Now, here's my question though. You look at guys like Allmark. Let's throw Bergeron and Marchand in there. Charlie McAvoy, whoever else you look at from this roster. But then there's David Pastrnak, and I wonder, is he far and away, when you look at the roster today and you think long-term for the Bruins, the most important player on that roster?
Important player is an interesting comment, Arda. I would say the fulcrum for everything that the Bruins do remains Patrice Bergeron. Him coming back to this team is, for my money, the reason they are where they are. Even Jim Montgomery, their head coach, said, look, my first phone call when I got hired was to Patrice Bergeron to make sure that dude's going to be back in the locker room because I need him to lead. I need everything he brings to the table. For me, he remains the linchpin for the Bruins' success. But he said important, and that's a very important phrase, because eventually Patrice Bergeron ain't going to be a Bruin anymore. Eventually, David Krejci isn't going to be a Bruin anymore. Heck, it could be next season where that happens. So if they could keep Pastrnak around, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, on a long-term contract, he is the most important player to the Bruins' success going forward because he's younger. He's going to be there. He is the next phase of Bruins hockey once the Bergerons and the Krejcis age out, and Marchand's not getting any younger either.
So why don't we go there? Because this is the elephant in the room all season long. And a lot of Bruins fans, a lot of hockey fans, let's be honest, are absolutely shocked that we have not seen an extension or some piece of paper put towards David Pastrnak with a whole lot of zeros trailing whatever number you might think of. I feel like it's coming. Yeah. Obviously, 6.6667 is not where he should be. He should probably be double that somewhere.
Yep.
But my question to you is, when it's all said and done, whatever posturing or extension of this entire saga is going on, where do you think that contract will land?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Arda. Like, we're all wondering where it is. Like, there has been times when it seems like it's getting close. There have been reports about it getting close. We're all kind of in the same spot here where we're thinking, okay, 8 years, 11 million per, get it done. We know that those are the numbers. We know that's the ballpark. The thing you keep hearing, though, when you talk to people about Pasternak's contract is that very thing I referenced before. What are the Bruins going forward? To me, I kind of wish they had made the Bo Horvat trade that the New York Islanders had made. At least then he knows, okay, Horvat's my guy for the next 8 years. I know that I'm going to have a center, a top line guy, an elite center to play with, because if the Bruins win the cup this year and all of a sudden Bergeron and Krejci are like, okay, our work is done, who's your center? Charlie Coyle? Like no offense to Charlie Coyle, but if you're Pastrnak, you want to know what the next phase of the Bruins looks like. And according to what I've heard, that term is the thing that is the issue right now, not necessarily the money.
I mean, any armchair GM is looking at this and saying, 8 years guaranteed. Like, we can't go any lower than that. I get it. Everything you're saying makes a lot of sense, but like everybody on the outside is like, are you kidding me? Look at this guy's production, and look at this guy's production with, you're right about Krejci and, that center depth, and they can certainly address that in the offseason, but it's unbelievable to me that we're still in this situation. Yeah.
And again, enough. The longer they wait, you wonder exactly what that price tag might be. Arda, there is a legitimate case, although maybe not an airtight one because of the guy he's going up against, but a legitimate case that David Pastrnak is the MVP of the National Hockey League this season? Could he win the Hart Trophy over Connor McDavid? Do you see a path for Pastrnak?
You and I have opposing viewpoints on the Hart Trophy and the Vezina. The last episode of The Drop, we had a debate about who should win the Vezina. You're leaning Connor Hellebuck. I'm leading Linus Ullmark. My argument about Ullmark was just purely statistics. Look at these numbers. And your argument about Hellebuck would be what I would make for David Pastrnak. But Connor McDavid is the Linus Ullmark in this equation. The numbers are just so insane that it would be silly to not give all the first place votes to Connor McDavid. Like if you're voting for David Pastrnak, you're voting for somebody that would probably win the Hart Trophy many other seasons. But this season, it's so difficult to look past what McDavid is doing. He's shooting more. He's on pace for his first 50-goal season. He's breaking records left, right, and center. It's just, how do you, let me ask you, how could you justify voting for Pastrnak first over Connor McDavid?
Well, let me make the statistical case, okay?
Yeah.
He's second in goals through 56 games, okay? So there is a chance that he could pass Connor McDavid and win the Rocket Richard Trophy for the second time of his career. The 28-point gap that Pastrnak had between himself and the second leading scorer on the Bruins is the largest gap for any player in the National Hockey League this season for their team, including the gap between Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Now, there's an inherent bias, Arda, against the best player on the best team winning the Hart Trophy. It's usually the guy that does the hard work and dragging his team to the playoffs that wins the Hart Trophy. See Taylor Hall a few years back with the Devils, for example. But we do have that Nikita Kucherov situation a few years ago where the Tampa Bay Lightning were challenging regular season records for points and wins, much like the Bruins are now, and he skated away with MVP honors. I don't think the argument is completely in McDavid's favor for MVP. There are other candidates you could look at, and I think one of them is David Pastrnak.
Yeah, Austin Matthews really dragged the Leafs into the playoffs last year. Like, it was tough, like score 60 goals.
It's not the
man,
rule
his
every
back
time.
must be killing him.
It's not the rule every time.
But they had an option like that last year.
And the year that Kucherov won, he also had like 130 points. I understand that. I'm just saying that there is a path for David Pastrnak to maybe win MVP.
I agree with you. There is a path. And by the way, his shooting percentage is like ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
He's at 15% right now. Like I actually pulled this up. Like throughout his career, he's had like the average is usually like 9 or 10%, right? The NHL average. He's consistently above that. That 2019-2020 year, Pastrnak, where he was like on pace to like shatter records, and then COVID, obviously, 17%. The whole season. Season, he had like 40 whatever goals. Unbelievable. I will say this: one of the reasons I love David Pastrnak is he's funny. He's a funny dude. He's hilarious. His Duncan commercials, I love him.
Elite.
Check your voicemail, refs. You missed some calls. Like, just his delivery even is just perfect. He's a hilarious dude.
Yeah, and impeccable fashion sense too. He's clearly one of the best dressed players in the National Hockey League. Whenever you ask him where that fashion sense comes from, he says, "I got a guy back in the Czech Republic." We should all have a guy back in the Czech Republic if that's how well he dresses. And like you said, just a personable, really fun guy. Let's not forget, Arda, just a couple of weeks removed from him doing, well, we should say him attempting a Happy Gilmore tribute at the NHL All-Star Game. I don't know how successful it ultimately was, but he has to get points at least for the reference.
It was successful to Adam Sandler, who did comment on it. So I guess I will classify that as a success. I hope his guy in the Czech Republic is Jaromir Jagr. I just imagine him calling, "Hey, Yaro, what should I wear today?" That's what I hope. So anyway, those are our thoughts on our David Pastrnak focused episode. Let's end on this. Obviously, he's so popular. He's MVP worthy, as you mentioned. He's putting up goals, points. He's a star in Boston. People love him. The city of Boston loves him so much that he has his own pasta.
Hey, there it is.
I just want to point out, do you know what enriched macaroni product is? I don't know what that is.
I imagine that is a complicated way of saying pasta.
He looks very happy. I just point out, look how happy he is. Enriched macaroni product. Well, to the enriched macaroni product, the star of the National Hockey League. He's Wish. I'm Marta. Thanks for watching.